Welcome to College Talk, a podcast brought to you by American campus communities where students love living. Join us for topics including how to prepare your student and mom and dad for college so they can thrive. Now your host, Anthony Rad.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us for the 5th podcast episode of College Talk. I'm your host, Anthony Rad. In today's episode, we're going to explore the topic of campus safety with a focus on technology, with experts from the Florida State University Police Department. Please welcome our special guest today. Lieutenant J. Wayne Baker began his law enforcement career with the Florida Department of Corrections before being hired on with the Florida State University Police Department in 2011. Lieutenant Baker oversees the Support Services Division at FSU PD, which includes crime prevention, community initiatives, hiring, recruitment, student internship program, specialized traffic enforcement, department awards and recognition, public information officer, department social media, and traffic safety programs. Throughout his time with FSU PD, Lieutenant Baker has been involved in many different areas within the department. Lieutenant Baker served on FSU PD's bike unit, motor unit, crime prevention, ATV, field training officer, and uniform patrol corporal. Lieutenant Baker has been involved in FSU PD's training by instructing law enforcement general topics and high liability topics, such as defensive tactics and driving. Lieutenant Baker is also an ordained minister and serves with the Seminole Baptist Church in Tallahassee, Florida, and married to Trina Baker with their 2 daughters, Ansley and Avery. Our second guest, Captain Richard Wooten, has been with the Florida State University Police Department for almost 20 years. He started with the Uniform Patrol Division, where he was promoted to corporal, then sergeant within Uniform Patrol. He transitioned to criminal investigations approximately 7 years ago, eventually being promoted to lieutenant over the division. About 1 year ago, he took his most recent promotion to captain over support services, where he oversees criminal investigations, violent crimes and narcotics, accreditation and compliance, training, crime prevention, crime scene and evidence, records, and much, much more. Thank you both for taking the time to speak with us today, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we have discussed campus safety in a previous episode before, but I've only briefly touched on the technological aspects of crime on campus today. So Lieutenant Baker is with us today to explore and most importantly, how to detect these cyber crimes. So my first question to you, Lieutenant Baker, is what are some emerging crime trends you are seeing on campus this year?
So the fraud crimes are definitely something that we've seen quite a bit in the fall semester. So when you talk about the emerging crimes as it pertains to technological type things, we're seeing quite a bit of stuff come through email, through social media, where people are trying to entice our students, our student population, not just our student population, but our student population, our faculty, our staff, are getting these types of emails or types of text messages or social media type things where it comes in and asks them to click on a link. It asks them to maybe apply for a job, so forth and so on. And then I would ask them to give some personal information, maybe an ask to send some money of some sort. And, and then, of course, Captain Wooten will talk more about how all that works. But that is something that we've seen a lot over the fall semester. And, of course, we're trying to get messaging out to our student faculty, our faculty, staff, and students about not really falling into that thing. So kind of like what we like to tell people, if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So on a technology side of things, that the fraud part, that's what sticks out the most. Now, of course, we have our typical. I know we've seen an increase in some panhandling, an increase in students being taken advantage of while being out alone, and some pedestrian vehicles safety type stuff that we've been dealing with in the fall as well.
You are seeing a trend. Is it certain times of the semester or the academic year? Is it just kind of year round, Lieutenant? Is that kind of the timeline that you're seeing on your end?
Well, certainly we saw more of it at the beginning of the semester. We saw a lot of it as the semester started. And again, that makes sense. So, of course, we see a lot of crimes at the very beginning of the semester, especially whenever you have a semester like this one where we kind of didn't have a real school year last year in 2020 because of the amount of kids who had to stay home, remote type work. So anyway, we've got our full population back, and there's several things that kind of play into that. But I feel like in any situation, in any school year, the beginning of the semester, it ramps up, and then of course it starts falling off once people. I mean, these students, and of course we as a police department and as a university, we put out a lot of messaging, and we communicate a lot with our campus population about certain things that are going on. So I think once that messaging gets out, you start seeing the decrease in these types of crimes. Now, of course, January, we may see an uptick again with some newer students maybe coming in January. And again, that'll fall back off again the closer we get to the end of the spring semester, as again, we get messaging out and students start communicating what's actually going on.
Captain Wooten, what exactly is a tech crime for our listeners out there? And most importantly, how is your department and other university police departments are structured to deal with a tech crime?
A tech crime, you hear that word thrown around all the time. Technically, it's a crime that is using a computer or digital-based technology to help commit the crime. So, technology as we know it is good, but it also can be used for bad. And, that's in a nutshell what a tech crime is. And, as far as, how are we equipped to handle those types of things, we're very fortunate because we have a whole department here at Florida State that's their sole purpose is to help with these types of issues that come with tech crimes. They're the security and privacy team. Bill Hunkapiller and his team, they have some tools in place that actually help to catch these kind of issues before they become an issue. So, a lot of times with the scams, they send out mass emails to large, they'll go in and get groups and student groups, and they'll send it out to all these people, and you can get one or two people to click on a link to be a victim, and that's a win for them. But we have tools in place here at Florida State that catch some of these emails that are sent out to large populations, that catch them and don't allow them to go through. So that's a big thing that we have in place here at FSU. And I think they do a good job with that. And then, unfortunately, some do get through, as Lieutenant Baker touched on earlier, and then we have to follow up on those. And we can go in and see who all received these spam emails and try to withdraw them back so people don't click on it and become a victim. So those are some of the things that we do from trying to prevent those crimes from happening.
So, Captain, are you doing any kind of networking with any other universities out there, or are you guys exchanging information, tips and tricks for each other? Is that kind of going on from campus to campus?
Yeah, we certainly do talk to our colleagues at other universities to see what they're seeing, and we also have other groups, in the law enforcement community that talk about what they're seeing, current trends, things that we look into. That's important because, just because we haven't seen it here, it's only a matter of time before it starts to flow this way when other universities are seeing it across the country.
When it does come to scammers, what tactics should students take before responding? I know I am not a student anymore, and I'm still receiving scam calls and emails and whatnot. So, it's not just particularly students. So what tactics should we take before responding to these?
Yeah, so I think Lieutenant Baker touched on it earlier. You always have to have in your mind, and we've been told forever, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. You got to pay attention. If someone's just giving you money out of the kindness of their heart, you probably definitely want to, take into consideration this could be a scam. Other things, most scams that are out there, they're usually some sort of, level of fear and embarrassment that's attached to it. And they try to go on and use the level of fear and embarrassment or whatever they're using as the tactic to extort money or gift cards from the victims. Things that you should look for is if someone contacts you out of the blue, if you haven't reached out to somebody about something, if something's coming in unprompted, that should be a red flag. If someone's coming in on a debt that you don't know about, or someone's been taken to jail that you're not aware of, you need to automatically have a red flag up. And, I always recommend if someone's contacting you from let's say a bank or financial institution or a jail, I'll always get their name and number and call them, say, I'll call you back. And then let's call the actual, go on and find a good number and call them and verify who you're talking to before you ever give any kind of information to anybody. They'll always try to dangle something in front of you. We've discussed it multiple times, the money, a big prize, inheritance that you didn't know you had. They try to throw those out there. They start asking you for personal information. Most, as many scams as there are out there, financial institutions, professionals across the country, they understand the scams that are out there, so they're not going to call you and start asking you personal information before you verify who you're talking to. Anything that they're asking for prepayment before you get something, or overpayment, where they're trying to pay you, hey, I'll write you a check for $2,500. You go ahead and take $500 out and just send me the $2,000 back. Anytime that someone's asking you to send money or gift cards to them, you should always be very cautious, and I would second guess it and ask a bunch more questions before you ever do something like that. Anytime you're wiring money, most financial institutions or any reputable business, they're not going to ask you out of the blue to wire money to somebody. So those are some of the things you want to look for that should put a red flag and make you very, very hesitant to talk to that person any further or send them anything.
Trust but verify, Captain, and I think a lot of these students, they don't really have too much life experience yet. So especially those who might be on student loans, and these financial institutions, or so they say, are calling them to confirm this information. You need to trust but verify. You need to reach out to them and confirm, is this real or not? So that is great information, and thank you very much for sharing that. Our next topic of conversation, I kind of want to dive into dating apps. Students today, that's how they meet one another. It's all about, the social media platforms, especially when they want to meet a significant other. There are a lot of dating apps out there. So what should students be wary of when meeting other people online? And when meeting a date for the first time, what are some tips and tricks for students to stay safe?
First off, when you are on these dating apps and sites and so forth, let's be mindful of your profile content. We always like to tell our students, keep it simple. Keeping it simple is way better than, too much information. All of that content can come later. But on your profile, that profile content needs to be very simple and honest. Never share stuff like social security numbers and date of birth or home addresses or home telephone numbers if people still have those, or your cell phone number. Constantly monitoring privacy settings on these apps and even just regular social media apps as well, or any of that. Limit the work history, those types of things that, limit, so one we talk about on social media a lot, that checking in your status type things, all of that stuff you could do later. I always make the joke about my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law likes to take, a picture of her food and say I'm eating at this location or whatever. And again, that's a little different from dating sites, but still it all kind of ties in to be mindful of what you're doing. People don't need to know where you're at all the time, and people definitely don't need to know that you're not at home when you're out. I mean that just leads to a bunch of different things. And there's a bunch of open record sources out there. I know Captain Wooten knows a lot about those open record sources that kind of will piggyback off of some of these dating sites too. So we got to be mindful of what's going into those things so that these open record sources aren't taking our information and having it out there online. So one of the things that we talk about a lot too, and this is going to sound very, I guess for lack of better terms, it's going to sound, well, I'll just say it. Listen to your gut. It's rarely wrong. That gut feeling that says, this is just probably not right. When you're looking at these dating sites, there's a lot of times where I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone is giving this misinformation inside of these dating sites, just trying to get you to come to wherever they're at, or trying to get you to think a certain way about them that probably isn't true. And a lot of times that gut feeling will tell you this is not right. This is not accurate about this person. This person is not the president of the United States, even though their dating site says they are, right? So there's some common sense things that goes along with these dating sites too. As you transition from that, there's a lot of things that when a lot of crimes that we see that comes out of these dating sites that as it pertains to what happens when they actually find someone on these dating apps that they like or might be interested in. A lot of things that happen when they get to these folks because they didn't maybe listen to their gut or verify who it actually was. And now they get there and things are off. And now, of course, these crimes happen. So we like to tell all of our students, and particularly our female students, if you're going to be accepting a date from a dating site or trying to communicate outside of that, if you're going to be getting phone numbers, don't give them your phone number, get their phone number, call them. And maybe you want to do that from another number to start with, just to verify these types of things, right? It's always better to be overly cautious when it comes to these things because there's some terrible people lurking around on these sites. So we always tell you, get their number. Don't give them yours to start with. We always recommend wherever you're going first, like that first date per se, meet them in a very populated, well-lit place. You know what I mean? And get what I said there. Meet them there. You got guys who, I want to come pick you up. I want to come pick you up and take you. I want this to be a real first date. Well, sorry, that's not how this works because I'm being overly cautious, right? So meet them on that first date. And when they say, hey, well, let's go meet at a certain place, maybe, no, I'd rather meet at this certain area because I know that it's well populated. I know that it's well lit. I know I can get out if I have to, right? And when you go to this place, be guarded with still, your personal information when you get to that point. We don't want to, that first date, go ahead and then start telling our life story. I mean, I guess there is such a thing as love at first sight, but let's just be cautious. We met somebody on a dating app, right? Another thing we like to tell our folks is to tell a friend or a loved one the details of the date. So, all right, we've made all these plans. Here's where we're going. Here's the time. Here's this, all the details, maybe what his name is, and obviously you've done some digging at this point. So now you know what he actually looks like and not his profile picture says he looks like, right? So tell them of that, maybe a description of them and so forth and so on. I know we try to get really in depth and try to be, again, really overly cautious, but we always tell, hey, park in a certain spot where you can see them, get out of their car and go to wherever, and then maybe take a picture of them, of that individual, take a picture of their vehicle, take a picture of their tag if possible, and then send that to their friend or loved one, right? Again, I know I'm sounding like paranoid, when it comes to these things, but, and a lot of people say that. You want us to be paranoid in everything we do. We don't want you to be paranoid. We want you to be prepared for anything. So we talk about having a friend, call or text during the date. Maybe have a code word that you can use during that date, to let people know that things are going okay. Code words, have a code word for bad things, have a code word for good things are going on, right? And then and then, and I'll end on this, let them leave first. When you get ready to leave, let them leave first. There's no need for them to have to walk you to your car. It's the first date, right? But let them leave first. Don't get in a situation to where they follow you home, because that was the whole point of meeting them there. You don't want them to know where you live. So let them leave first so that you don't have to worry about them following you to a place.
Not paranoid, but prepared. I love that, Lieutenant. Yeah. And I think it's about communication. Like you said, we've talked about technology being a crime, but it could also be a safety net. You know, like you just said, sending pictures to your friends and loved ones, parents, dropping a pin, exactly the location of where you're located, sending a quick message, code words, FaceTime. I mean, the list can go on and on of how technology can help us and communicate to those when we're on these, first dates through these dating apps. So very well said. I think that is some great information there. You know, these students are constantly on the go. They're in classes all the time. They're going across campus, especially a very large campus, such as Florida State University. They're in groups, organizations, study groups, jobs, etc. So how can these students who are on the go be more conscious of their surroundings? And a follow-up question to that, what are some good campus and communication resources that they should be aware of?
Kind of piggybacking off of that, using your technology as an ally and not an anchor, we have to limit our distractions. If we're out and about, how often do we see our students or anyone with the earbuds in both ears, the AirPods in both ears, or they're walking with their phone in their hand and they're staring at their phone. So for one, they're not seeing where they're going, they're not hearing what's around them. So we really want our students to pay attention to their surroundings and limit their distractions and know what's around them. So if for some reason something happens and the police show up to do some sort of investigation, you'll know what's around you. So, for example, if you're walking down the sidewalk and, there's something happens and there are buildings or structures, landmarks that you can let us know, exactly what happened, where it happened, and what you could probably point to help us with our investigation. We ask our students, think about as you're walking along, as you are going about your everyday business, think about that what if. What would I do if this happened? We do this a lot with our police officers in training. If we're going, think about, what would I do if this happens on this call? We do that if they're in training just to kind of get their wheels turning. Well, we want our students and our faculty and our staff, everybody who walks around campus, to think about that. What would I do if this happens? And again, you talking about that technology as an ally and not an anchor. A lot of times people say, well, I don't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to call this person in for being suspicious because I didn't want to offend them. Well, listen, if they're offended by that, then, sorry, you were just trying to protect yourself. So students and faculty and staff, or whoever on the go, they have to be conscious and limit those distractions, pay attention to their surroundings. With those things, we have our alert system that goes out through the university. So what that is anytime there's anything from a thunderstorm to a very dangerous event, we have the ability to put out mass alerts to the population here, to the whole entire community, letting them know what that is. So if we have a robbery, if we have an armed and dangerous individual running through campus, we're able to send an alert out. And what that alert does is goes directly to everyone's email, everyone's text messaging, kind of a brief description of what's going on and what they need to do. There's so many different ways that we're communicating with the campus community. One of the biggest ways is our social media. We communicate through the police department, through the university, and we all kind of tie all that stuff in together to make sure that our community, our campus community, is being given the information that they need. So a lot of these safety tips we post on a daily basis, just, hey, as a reminder, don't walk alone at night, things like that. So several different ways we communicate. We never stop communicating really with them. And
that kind of leads me to my next question. You kind of discussed it earlier. As a university police department, how do you reach students and parents? You mentioned social media platforms. Any other resources that you reach out to them?
So social media platforms is a big one that our parents do get to see a lot of stuff. I know that they have several groups within social media platforms that they see certain things. They're able to put their numbers and emails and things into that system in which we send alerts and things out as well. So parents are able to get all that information realistically the same way.
Captain, this next question is going to be for you before we kind of wrap things up. With students out there who experience a tech crime, they may not think it's a major crime. They may not think it's worth reporting. They might just kind of brush it off. So how crucial and why is it important for these students to report tech crimes?
Well, it's very important. I think we discussed it earlier that we communicate with our law enforcement partners at other universities and in our area so we can see how things are being done at other universities. Unfortunately, with these types of crimes, they tend to lead overseas. A lot of them come from overseas, so when we start investigating, we run into a lot of dead ends and a lot of, it's hard to recover the money that's usually lost in these types of fraud and scams. However, it's good for us as law enforcement to see what the trends are, how they're doing it, what they're doing, so that way we know, if it's the same group, we can pass that information on. And they may be overseas now, but you never know. There could be a group of that or a cell of that group that's working in conjunction with someone that's in the USA. So we can actually have an opportunity to go at that. But the main thing is it's important to make sure that it is something that's going to go overseas, because a lot of times we hear it, it's all going overseas, there's nothing really we can do. But from the educational standpoint, that's important because you've been a victim, so let's get the word out and educate other people how not to be the victim. Also, maybe it's something that we can use from the information and privacy team to see some of the keywords in the emails and what some of the words they're using, that we can try to grab these so that they don't get out to other potential victims. So that's important. And then again, anytime you've been the victim of a crime, I think it's important to report it to law enforcement, because something that you might not think of, it may be a bigger piece of a puzzle to help us solve other crimes that have happened in our jurisdiction and others. So you never know, just one, sometimes, when we're putting a piece of a puzzle back together, it's that one corner piece you've been looking for that's been under the table that may have been missing. And sometimes there's something that's very minor to some person may be huge to another person to help us solve multiple crimes in multiple jurisdictions.
That's very interesting. Like you mentioned, education, awareness, and sometimes the missing piece. You'd be surprised if you don't think it's considered, a major crime. Report it anyways. It's better to be safe than sorry. All right, gentlemen, we're going to kind of wrap things up and just want to see if there's any closing thoughts on campus safety, technology. Lieutenant Paker, we'll go ahead and start with you, and then Captain, you'll be after that.
We want you to be safe. Common sense goes a long way. There's a lot of these things that sometimes you just don't think about. But more importantly, don't think that something is not serious enough to take serious, if that makes any sense. I mentioned earlier, pride is something that people let get in the way of a bunch of different things. Please understand that these things happen to anybody. Just when you think that it can't happen to you, it will. So we need everybody to be paying attention to what's going on. Realistically, if everybody looks out for everybody, we all will be a little more safe in our community. So everybody look out for their fellow student, look out for their fellow staff member, their fellow faculty member, and just know that there is crime out there. Even in the most safest places in the world, there is still crime out there, and we need everybody to pay attention to their surroundings, know what's going on, and help everybody be safe.
Captain, as part of your closing thoughts, with the holidays around the corner, do you think you might be able to provide our listeners with any kind of best practices for crime prevention around the upcoming holidays?
Yes, and to piggyback off of what he said, we pride ourselves on doing the best job to keep our students, faculty, and staff safe. But we can't be everywhere, so we need our community to be our extra eyes and ears out there. And if you see something, even just the smallest thing. There was this guy, I've never seen this guy on campus. Let us, as the experts, go out there and determine if he's doing something he shouldn't be doing or she's doing something she shouldn't be doing. Over my career, I've seen it and I've heard it where, oh, man, I saw that guy. I've seen him there the last 2 days, and then next thing you know, he or she is doing something that is victimizing a student. And if we'd have had that one call, we could have saved someone from being victimized. Something's not sitting right. It doesn't look right. Doesn't feel right. Call law enforcement. That's what we're here for, to make sure that your safety is the most important to us, and we want to make sure to give you a positive learning environment.
What I really like about your best practices, Lieutenant and Captain, is they're so simple. So it's just a matter of explaining that and letting our students be aware of these simple tactics. You know, everyone can do it. It's just a matter of educating these students and parents out there to understand how it works. Well, Lieutenant and Captain, you know, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And this has been a very engaging conversation. And hopefully our listeners out there have some new perspectives and tools regarding campus safety to help them have a successful academic year. We wish you all the very best of luck. Thank you for listening.